What's going on, folks? Joe Bob's Bass coming back at you here for another Tackle Tuesday video. Today we are super stoked talking about one of my favorite baits because it is just so damn versatile, and that is the paddle tail swim bait. Whether it's this little 3.8 inch, whether you're really downsizing maybe for crappies, getting that little 2.5 inch, or you're throwing a big 6.5, 8 inch, whatever it might be. So today we are going to go over a couple different ways that I personally really like to rig this bait. Just really, it is so incredibly versatile. I've got 5 or 6 different ways to show you how I almost always have this thing tied on at least one of my rods, and I throw it in all kinds of different conditions. So let's take a look. So you can see here I've got quite the different assortment of these paddle tail swim baits. All right, we've got little tiny Kitex, we've got 3.25 inch rage swimmers, we've got the bigger 4.75 inch rage swimmers, we got the Storm Largo shads, we've got a couple Guggen saucy swimmers, we've got off-brand Bass Pro Shops speed shads, these are big huge boys, and then we've got a couple different hooks and things here to show you how I rig them up. So first off, this one is actually super great. If I'm fishing with somebody that maybe doesn't fish a whole lot, I give them something like this, and I'll just take a little bit of a Ned rig, this 3.25 Rage swimmer, and I'll rig that up just like a typical, if I can get it on there, my goodness. Rig that up just like a Ned rig. Okay, and I'm not going to get too focused on this, but you get the point, right? This one's got a weed guard on it, so you got a weedless presentation. That kick is nice. It's a small, finesse type bait, and you've got a little bit of weight, so you can kind of just bounce this thing on the bottom if you want to, or you could also just swim it back, straight retrieve, and that tail will be kicking. So super great, nice and weedless, although I've got even a better way to rig up a weedless paddle tail, something like this. This one's a little bit big of a hook for this size of the paddle tail, but I will take typically a 4, maybe 5/0 belly hook, belly weighted hook, and rig it up that way. And then these ones are nice. They've got the locks on there, right? So I'm not dealing with the extra wide gap and having it slip off or having to mend it and keep it on there all the time. This is great, and this will catch at least a few fish before you've got to replace it. But this is completely weedless, as I just put my finger in the hook there. So you can see this is just incredibly versatile. It's going to always give you that nice swimming action, and you can throw this way up there into trees, into weeds, into lily pads, whatever it might be, and you're really not going to get rigged, or you're not going to get hung up, which is really nice. Another version, and this is kind of a wacky one, I couldn't find my normal one, but it's just an underspin. So again, you could, the other versions that I've got, you can get these same belly hooks and just have them with an underspin on the underneath, okay? Like I said, that one's a little big. I would typically do it, this is a 4/0, I believe. This is actually a 3/0, so this would be something probably for that 3.5-ish, maybe a 4-inch, maybe not even a 4-inch this would be a little small for, but that 4/0, maybe a 5/0 for those 4.75 inches works great, okay? When you're then sizing up to something like this, a kind of a big 6-inch paddle tail, then I'm going to be using something more aggressive like this 7/0, okay? Same thing, just that swivel to get that hook in place there, that anchor, and then that big belly will fill that out a little bit more, but still keeping it weedless, okay? So next up, we've got a kind of a variation of the Ned. This is more of just a ball jig with an extra wide gap presentation. So here I use this for my Kitex a lot of the time. This is great. That gives that Kitex a ton of that kick and action. Everybody knows how great Kitex are, obviously. But then still, you've got plenty of hook there to work with when you're setting. Okay, so another great little presentation there. If you've got some ball jigs, maybe for smallmouth, bouncing this on the bottom of the river, that works great, okay? Another one, as we just keep rifling them off here, is just your typical swim jig, all right? This is another weedless version. But again, we can just take this, just like this, rig that on there. And now, instead of a craw or anything else, you've essentially just got that swim jig. And again, you can pair these with different colors, right? I'm not focusing on anything like that right now. But I've caught fish on all of these different rigs, okay? So whether It's a little bit bigger of a presentation with the swim jig, right? You're getting a little bit more body to that. Or if you want something really finessey, like the Ned rig here, or even smaller, the little 3/0 with the belly hook. So then that's just completely concealed on there, all right? So again, we're gonna talk a little bit about how all of these baits are a little different as well. The Kitex are one of my favorites. They are just super flashy in the water. That tail kick is just something else compared to all these other brands. My go-to just for the price and for the flexibility of them is the Rage Swimmer. All right, so you can see here I've got the 3.25s, I've got the 4.75s there. Those things are just killer, and they last fish and fish and fish. You know, they're not Z-Man type plastic, but they still just hold up really well compared to our friends over here at Googan. The Googan baits have some great action. I'm not going to disagree. They've got some pretty good action. They've got some great color schemes. However, you catch one fish on that thing and she is toast, all right? So that's kind of the drawback. These Largo shads, I haven't used those a whole lot. They've got a lot more of these kind of realistic printed colors you can see. These ones are made to, you know, be kind of a perch presentation, I would guess, maybe a bluegill, whatever that might be. But yeah, I mean, they're okay. They have a great little kick to them. They've got kind of this, let me grab one out here for you. These ones have kind of a unique body compared to the rest of these because they've got a big, huge hook slot here on the bottom, whereas a lot of these are just solid, right? They might have a little bit of a hook slot, but these ones have a nice big slot. And then if you look here on the tail, they've actually got kind of this double brace thing going on. And I've noticed that if you break off this bottom one or you just rip that off, you get a little bit more tail kick. So while this is going to be a little bit more main line, kind of streamlined in there, if you break that off, you're going to get a little bit more action. Not like a crazy amount, but that is kind of nice. It adds another level of versatility, right? So, and then of course, when we're talking about something like this, right, you're going to throw these on a bigger rod. You're going to be throwing these for either really, really big bass, hoping to get a huge bite, or maybe just throwing them for pike, muskie, whatever you might be doing. It might be a little small for muskie. But this Bass Pro Shops brand is actually pretty comparable here to the Rage Tail stuff, all right? You know, it's maybe $1 or $2 cheaper, but it's not a huge difference anyways, right? These Rage Swimmers, I think, are maybe $6 at the local Cabela's here. The Bass Pro stuff is like $4.50, $5. So it's not a huge difference if you want the name brand, right? But essentially today is really all about just the different ways that we can rig, right? So let's just recap here. We've got the ball jig. Plain, simple, weedless, throws around rocks and hard bottom stuff really, really well. We've got an underspin. Throw any size on this really. That's going to be more of a straight retrieve, open water, right? Maybe going for those suspended bass off of a hump or something, off of a secondary point in the middle of the lake. You've got my favorite, absolute favorite, the 3/0, 4/0, or 5/0 belly weighted spiral ring hook. And that's going to pair with, depending on what size you're using, right? But this is so great because it is just so incredibly weedless. I absolutely love the action that it maintains with that belly hook on all of these different paddle tails. And you really just can't go wrong. And you can throw it in any condition. You can skip it up under docks. You can get it down to the bottom fairly quickly, depending on how big your hook and your weight is, right? And then, of course, like I said, kind of right at the beginning, take just your little Ned rig and throw a little 3.25 on there, even a 2.5 inch, rather than just your stick bait or your little Ned or your little TRD minnow, whatever it might be. Put on your little paddle tail and see what you can do with that thing. Super versatile, super great. Like I said, guys, I've got one of these tied on almost every time I'm going out fishing, whether it's fall bite, spring bite, midsummer, morning, night. I always have a rod with something with a paddle tail on it. Excuse me. And it really just gets bit, plain and simple. I've gotten bit on bright blue colors. I've gotten bit on a lot of, kind of these more natural shad colors are great. The Kitex stuff always seems to be a little bit more sparkly and flashy, and that's fine too. I think this is the baby bass color actually. So not sure how well that color is doing here, but that kind of greenish with that shaddy, silvery bottom. It's great. I mean, they're super versatile, and you can even get out of the box and throw something like this with a purple, pink sparkle and a bright green chartreuse belly to them, and they'll still get bit. I mean, it's really just depending on what you like to throw. So have fun with it, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this week's Tackle Tuesday video, and we will see you next week from Lake Havasu, Arizona.